How many books have you actually written? I was looking through your website, actually.
About 10.
Is it? And it seems to be in a very short space of time. You must find it very easy to write these books, just sort of, or do they just come to you?
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, but basically, they are hard research. You know, they're not pulled from the heavens, and this is how I think it is. I mean, my last 2 books have been a total of 1,000 pages, and they're all sourced and stuff. It's amazing how much, when you go searching for it, how much information and evidence there is to show that there is a singular force which is manipulating through apparently unconnected organizations, political parties, countries, to the same end, which is to centralize power in the world, with a world government, world central bank, world currency, etc.
Aren't we almost there? I mean,
we are almost there. Absolutely.
Yeah, nice it used to be to visit a different town or a different village or a different city. And now, if you go into the shopping centres or the high streets, everything, you only have about half a dozen different shops.
Yeah.
So everything is becoming centralised.
Exactly. And in every area of our lives, whether it's banking, business, politics, whatever, the incessant movement has been towards centralisation of power. And there's a reason for this. When there is, relative to the global population, not many of you that is actually knowingly doing the manipulating, diversity of decision-making is your worst flipping nightmare. There's so many points where decisions are being made you just can't manipulate. You have to centralize decision-making, and ideally on a global level. And so we've had this incessant centralization of power, and now, as we're seeing, it used to be medium companies taking over small companies, big companies taking over medium companies. In all these various areas of our lives, we're now having mega global corporations fusing with mega global corporations. I mean, J.P. Morgan's just been taken over by Chase Manhattan. And whenever something that has remained hidden is about to become reality, like the agenda is about to be introduced, there's always a window of time when what has been hidden up to that point becomes manifest, where you can see it as it enters, reality in terms of the world around us. And we're now in that window of time where so many organizations, which have always been controlled by the same force, are now manifesting that by fusing together and by amalgamating.
I want to mix in quite a few phone calls tonight because there are lots of people who want to speak to you.
Right.
But let's clear a few things up first of all, because I don't want to get the phone calls who are going to come on and ask the same question. So they're going to ask you if you're still the Son of God, or why you decided you would tell everybody you were the Son of God. So let's talk about that and get it out of the way, and then go and talk about this book.
A long time ago now, it's about 10 years ago, something like that, I was minding my own business, getting on with my life, when, how can I put it? When you observe people, and I observe myself up to that point, we live in what I call an eggshell. We only access a fraction of our consciousness, and our reality is so tiny compared with what there is to observe and what there is to connect with. And a lot of people, like thousands and thousands of people around the world, I've been in 25 countries in the last 5 years, so I've met a lot of people, went through, are going and have been and are going through the experience I went through in the early 1990s, which is that eggshell bursts. And suddenly a whole different vision of reality and possibility starts flooding into your mind. And it's a bit like, when a dam bursts and the water cascades down, it's chaotic, and it's like, what the friggin' hell's going on? And then everything settles down in a new situation. And that period when things were going very strange with me was a period of about 3 months. And when I entered into it, it was just like a dam bursting. And it was just, I really can't put words to it now. It's a very, very strange experience, but it is an experience, I repeat, that thousands and thousands of people have had. 3 months later, or maybe even less than that, after all the publicity and all that stuff.
Do you think it was a breakdown? Is that what
it was a break up, and no, more than that, it was a breakthrough. Because on the other end of it, I was the same person in terms of what I'd been before, except that I looked through the same eyes and heard through the same ears in the same world, but what I perceived, how I saw it, what I observed was completely and utterly different. And we live in like a little box, and our sense of reality and possibility is so tiny. And it's like, imagine living in a box for 30 years, and you thought that was reality and that was all that existed, and then someone tiptoes up to you and opens the lid, and you realize that that's a fraction of it. And moving from my perception of life before, my perception of life afterwards, completely transformed me in terms of the way I saw the world. But the bit in between was utter friggin' chaos. But it was a chaos that set me free. And I make this point. It set me free for this reason. Most people live in a prison, and that prison is called the fear of what other people think. That means that we are not living our unique self and our unique spin on life. We are living our lives according to what we think others think we should be. We're living their version of reality, not our own. We're frightened of what other people think. And in this way, we police each other. Because once society makes it a crime to be different, it means that anyone who goes against the norm is instantly ridiculed or condemned by the rest of the people. The fear of that ridicule and condemnation keeps people in the pen. Fear of what other people think. Well, this is what I'd like to say, but what will my mother think, and what will they think down the bar, and oh my goodness. That period of what the hell's going on, for me, of 3 months, attracted to me so much ridicule that I couldn't walk down any street in Britain without being laughed at. Going in a bar, forget it. And one of two things happen when you go through that. One, you end up in a corner in a dark space, like shaking in the corner. And the second one, which I chose, is you step out of that prison of fearing what other people think. And once you step out of it, it's only then you realize you've been in it. You only then realize how limited we are when we fear what other people think of us. And that ridicule set me free from that prison. And although it was a nightmare and incredibly painful at the time, I have to say I thank the people who ridiculed me, because they set me free and have allowed me to live my life in a completely different way ever since.
Do you still believe that you've been put on this planet for a particular reason? Do you still believe that you're here, that you have a mission, that you have something that has to be said, and that you are the person who has to say whatever happens to you?
Well, I think that everyone comes into this life for a reason. They come into this life for their own experience or to make a contribution, usually a combination of both.
So you still believe in God?
Well, it depends what you call God. You see, one of the great misrepresentations of me is that I discovered religion. Religion is the greatest form of mind control ever invented. You could not, with a blank sheet of paper, create a system that would more limit our ability to express our own uniqueness. It is psychological fascism at its extreme. I didn't discover religion, and I don't perceive what we call God as some bloke. And it's always a bloke, mate. Have you noticed that? Some bloke sitting on a throne, all that stuff. For me, everything that exists is the same energy. You express itself in different states of being. And coming around to the Son of God thing, the way I see things, and more people are saying this, including scientists, some scientists that have gone into the metaphysical area. Everything is the same energy in different states of being. Therefore, we are all part of that infinite energy. Therefore, if you call that energy God, you can call it Ethel for all I care, we are all aspects of that whole. And in that way, if you want to use symbolic language, we're all sons and daughters of the whole, of God or Ethel or whatever you want to call it.
So when you made that statement, when you said, I forget who you said it to that caused all this stuff, but when you said you thought you were the Son of God, you were just coming to terms with this new reality in your mind and hadn't actually worked out what was going on.
Exactly. But I mean, I used the word "the" about once, but what I said most of the time, and what I meant all of the time, was an aspect. You see, one of the great prisons that we live in is creating these hierarchies where you've got God up there and you've got some deity there, and you've got some guy with a dog collar and a long frock here, and then you've got the rest of us, and we're all kind of not perfect, you see, because they're all better than us. And so any idea of the Son of God, the this, the that, we are all equal aspects of the whole.
Sure.
What we choose to do with our lives, what we choose to do with our potential is up to us, but we are all equal aspects of the whole.
I'm going to take a little break for the news in a moment, but what I want to come back after that and talk about is whether, A, you feel that you've been given a mission from some creative force outside, if you like, because you have discovered things, according to your books, that nobody else has.
No one else has. I'm taking information that has been researched widely by loads of people. Trying to get it in the public arena, mate, is a friggin' nightmare.
Okay.
And what I'm doing is taking that information and trying to put it in the public arena where people can get access to it.
All right, we're going to talk about that, and it's fascinating. You can find out a little more when we come back. You can talk. The lines are completely jammed at the moment to talk to David, and Alex and Gloria and Darren and Neil and Tom and Karen will all get their chance to talk to David afterwards, and you too, if you stick with it. And we'll talk a little bit about his new book of these reptilian-human hybrids that could affect all of us. David, welcome back to the show.
Thanks, mate.
David Icke, we've got over the Son of God bit now. I want just...
Seems like another friggin' life, that.
It does, doesn't it, really? I want, it must cloud everything you do. I imagine that it must get on your nerves more than anything else, but there we are. There are worse things to be thought of, I suppose, as...
I've been called most of them.
Let's look at this new book, which is called, I forgot what it's called now.
The Biggest Secret.
Yeah. Now, what about these reptilian human beings that shift their shape? I mean, people are going to say, "Oh, come on, David, you're going to have another sort of session in some psychiatric unit."
Yeah, and I really don't give a damn, because it's just information, and if people want to look at it, and it's about 500 odd pages of the book, and it don't make sense to them, then you know,
so we had a guy,
a cup of tea, I'm not bothered. It's just information.
We had a guy called Alan F. Alford came to the program, and he wrote a book called Gods of the New Millennium. Now he's gone back on that and said it wasn't quite right since then, which is a bit unfortunate. But in the book, which I found fascinating, a lot of people did, a fascinating book, he talks about this strange race of people, the Anunnaki, that came down and interbred with people on this planet, and they don't ever die. These people live on and on and on and on in one guise or another. They found the gene that ages everybody and got rid of it, whatever. He explained it, I can't remember. But your book, as far as I can see, sort of takes a similar line with these hybrid beings on this planet that are still around.
Well, I'll tell you what it was. I started researching as I started this journey. Who actually ran the planet? Various things happened in my life in the early 90s, which made me realize that it wasn't the forces that we thought it was. And the more that I've traveled...
Can I ask you what those things were, or not?
What's that?
I mean, the things that happened to you in the early 90s.
Just people I met and things that I read and things that I came across. And it was basically a trickle of information that got my interest, and then it got wider and wider, and it's a flipping tidal wave now. And I've been in 25 countries in the last... 4 or 5 years researching and talking, and therefore I've been able to see the same things happening in every country. And what you realize as you walk this journey is the further you move along in your research, the more you realize that all these different areas of our lives that we thought were in opposition to each other or were independent of each other actually are tied together. And then you start to realize that certain bloodlines keep turning up in the positions of power, and that these are the bloodlines, whether it's the Eastern establishment families of the United States or the aristocracy and royal families of the past and the present in Europe, who have incessantly interbred with each other. So I'm thinking, you know, what is this obsession with interbreeding with each other, with these people in positions of power? I started to realize that the way the world was structured was like Russian dolls, one inside another. And instead of Russian dolls, these guys use pyramids. Now, it's a very simple structure. The way that a few people manipulate millions and billions is because if you look at any organization today, including talk radio,
or even Talk Sport.
Talk Sport, yeah. And it's been a long time. It was talk radio last time I came on. Calvin McKenzie goes everywhere. And they are structured as pyramids. At the top of every organization, whether it's a bank or whatever, you've got a tiny few people who know what the real agenda is, what it's really trying to achieve, and what their game is. As you come down from that pyramid peak in any organization, you're meeting more and more and more people who know less and less about what the organization's about. They're just doing their job and going home. They don't know what their contribution every day, or how that connects with someone else's contribution in another branch or another office or another department or another company in the group. Only the people at the top know how it all fits together. That pyramid then goes into a bigger pyramid. So in the end, for instance, in the banking system, the bank pyramids become the global banking system pyramid. And at the top of that are the same few people pulling the strings of the banking system. Then you have a transnational corporation, which is a compartmentalized pyramid. That goes into the transnational global network, which encompasses all the transnationals, and at the top of that are a tiny few people who are orchestrating the policy of the transnationals, and they're the same people that control the banks. And in other areas, institutions of our lives, the same thing happens. And in the end, you have a global pyramid which encompasses all of them, and at the top of that are the same few people and groups and secret societies who are dictating down from the top through, apparently, at our level of society, completely unconnected institutions, companies, political parties, the same policy of centralization of power. Now, just to finish the point, what I realized was, A, these same people kept turning up all the time wherever you looked, and secondly, they incessantly interbred with each other. So I started to go back to find the starting point of this, because the structure is so simple and so well put together. It obviously wasn't put together 5 years ago or even 50 years ago. And I kept going back, and I got comfortably back to the time of the Crusades and the Knights Templar and all that, around the 1200s, that kind of time. And I go back, and I'm going back thousands of years BC. And when you get back there, not just in Anunnaki terms in Sumer and the Near Middle East, but all over the planet, you get the same recurring theme of an interbreeding with some kind of non-human race. When
you say non-human race, how do you, I mean, where did you get the information that led you to believe there was this interbreeding with the non-humans?
Well,
how could we know?
Well, when you scan these ancient texts, funny enough, there's a number of books that concentrate just on this in the ancient world. And people that have researched this in detail, you find this constantly recurring theme of a serpent race or the serpent gods, with the implication that if you go back far enough, and we're talking way back, that they actually took some kind of humanoid reptilian form. I'm understanding more and more about this as I go along at the moment and research a certain area of this. It's becoming clearer and clearer to me what's actually been going on.
If you were to cut one of these people in half or dissect them or do whatever else, these would you notice, are they built differently to human beings in some way?
Well, I'll tell you what's emerging. The key to understanding, I more and more understand, the control of this world is to understand that this physical world that we perceive sitting here is only a frequency range. Take the analogy of radio and television. I'm sitting here now, you're sitting there. All the radio and television stations' frequencies broadcasting to London are in the space that my body is occupying. I'm not aware of them because they're vibrating to a different frequency to me, therefore they can occupy the same space without me being aware of them. All the different frequencies are occupying the same space. Unless you tune a radio or television to a specific frequency, you're not aware that it is even there. And when you start to appreciate what creation is, it is an infinity of frequency ranges. What we're perceiving sitting here is merely the frequency range which our physical senses can access. A dog, for instance, can hear far higher sounds than we can. Cats appear to be very psychic because their frequency range of perception goes beyond ours. So when you start to understand that this is just one dimension, and that these dimensions are interconnecting with each other and affecting each other, and then you start to appreciate that what appears to be some people call extraterrestrial races is actually another dimensional race that can manipulate our thinking, what people have called over the years possess a physical body. The more I'm understanding this, the more this force which is manipulating the planet is actually another dimensional force which is using the physical body to manipulate this world. Now, it appears that there are certain bloodlines which allow this to happen more than the norm. Okay. And they're trying to put these bloodlines into the positions of power because then they're putting themselves in these positions of power.
One last question before we go to the break.
Yeah.
So a certain bloodline could well have been developed to lead and to run things. Is that necessarily a bad thing? Does that necessarily matter to us or not?
Well, I think any situation where people are born to rule or have a certain bloodline which ends up in the positions of power because they're in a certain bloodline, what's that got to do with freedom? And,
is there any freedom? I mean, is freedom just a sort of a psychological concept?
We have the illusion of freedom. The whole point about taking people's freedoms away in a situation where they will not rebel against that is to kid the people you're taking the freedoms from that they've never been freer than they have before.
Okay.
But the point I would just make very quickly is that when and more people are doing this, you do the genealogy of the people in positions of power, like American presidents, although they're at quite a low level of power, really, compared with the people above them. Their bloodlines go back to the ancient ruling royal lines of the ancient world. The very royal lines that, according to the ancient accounts, this interbreeding created and put into the positions of ancient ruling royal power. Now, there's some kind of fair coincidence that the people in power today should overwhelmingly genetically go back to the people who were ruling thousands of years ago in the very royal ruling lines that the ancient accounts say resulted from the interbreeding between some kind of non-human force and humanity, creating this hybrid ruling race. If people want to accept that as coincidence, well, fair enough. Be my guest, but I'm not.
Okay, we're going to come back, and Alex and... I should do that for a living, actually. David Icke is with me. If you want to talk to David, 08700 40 50 60, or email us at talksport.net. Sorry it's been so long. Alex?
Thanks.
You're on the air.
Hi, David.
Yeah. Hang on, Alex. Just as a sports result coming.
All right.
Is it? What have they done?
1-1 at home in the UEFA Cup. Bad result.
Not bad. Alex, your go.
Yep. Hi. David.
Hello, mate.
Hi. I've read some of your literature, and very fascinating it is. The Robots Rebellion and The Truth Shall Set You Free, and the latest book, The Biggest Secret.
Robots Rebellion.
You speak about the banking system and the EU very, very well and comprehensively, and I agree with you. But when it comes to these full-blooded, shape-shifting reptilians, we have testimony and accounts, but I don't see much evidence other than comparisons with certain diagrams and everything else. I mean, you have actually named very, very well-known people and suggest to us that they shapeshift, sorry.
Careful, Alex, you might get a rude word there.
I know. That they transform themselves into these reptilians. Now, these are big accusations. Now, what
hang on, Alex. Hang on. I'm sorry, you want to ask a question.
I just want to ask, just because it's two questions in one. If these people are so powerful and they are part of the elite or the lower echelons of the elite, would they not want to stop you doing this? Or are you maybe perhaps, as some people have suggested, actually begun to work for the elite and mixing our minds up and confusing us now?
That's two questions.
Yeah, because the two questions are...
Why haven't... Hang on, Alex, let's make it easier. Why haven't some of these people that you've named, we won't go into all the people you've named, they can read your book if they want to find out. Why haven't they sued you?
Because it's true.
And how would you prove that you're not a shape-shifting reptilian? It would be difficult.
Yeah, but I talk about them in far greater terms than that. But let's just briefly talk about the shape-shifting. You see, I've travelled, like I say, extensively, and when you meet people from many different walks of life, from the banking system, from, you name the walk of life. I've met them around the world in all the different countries, who have told me the same story of their own experience, which is, and some of them have been wives of husbands who've seen this, how they have seen someone change from a human form to a reptilian-type form and then go back again.
These people that actually sing.
Oh, yeah. I mean, when you get 1 or 2, you go, oh, my God, what's all this about? Then you get 12, and then you get 24, and then you get 50. You know, I follow information. I have no preconceived idea. I'm not attached to any belief system. I just want to know what the hell's going on. When you have those endless testimonies, and of course, because of the nature of what they're saying, and what we talked earlier about, the prison being the fear of what other people think, a lot of these people are terrified of speaking out publicly, but they tell me. So you see the evidence in the book, and the people that I name openly who've said, yes, this is my experience. But that's the tip of a massive iceberg of people that I've met around the world who told me the same basic experience. Then you start scanning the ancient accounts, and you see that they're also talking about the fact that some of these serpent bloodlines and serpent gods and serpent people could take either human or reptilian form. And for me, the way I'm understanding this more and more is the fourth dimensional, another dimension, another frequency range close to this one, is where these reptilian entities and other entities operate from. And they operate through the physical form in this dimension, in this frequency range. And sometimes they move between the two, or someone's consciousness starts tuning in to another level of the person, and at that point they will see them in a reptilian form rather than a human form. Now,
that's made it clear, hasn't it, Alex?
Well, yes, but
of course.
Has David seen this ever? Have you seen this?
No, I've not seen it. Actually, what I am is a reporter. Basically, I was a journalist for years, and I'm being a journalist now. I'm taking these ancient and modern stories and saying, hey, this is how they sync together. But in the end of the day, Alex, I really, and I can't express this enough, I couldn't give a damn whether people accept it or not. Not for arrogantly saying, I don't care what you bloody think, but because it's none of my flipping business. It's none of my business what anyone thinks. It's just information. And, you know, there are other people I've met around the world, and some of the some levels of this elite, some of the gopher levels, they are as sick and disgusted at what's going on, not least to children, around the world, and they are trying to get information out. And I've spoken to a number of them, and they confirm, amazing as it may be, that there is the reptilian dimension to this, other dimensional reptilian consciousness working through the physical form is precisely what's going on. But it's so fantastic, it takes someone who doesn't give a shit what people think to actually make it public.
All right, thank you for that, Alex. I want to go on to Gloria as well, who's been waiting quite a long time. David Icke is my guest, and we're talking about his new book, which is called, remind me, David?
The Biggest Secret.
The Biggest Secret. It's about reptilian shapeshifters that live amongst us and control us, in fact, control practically everything that's going on. Gloria.
Hello. Is David there?
I am Gloria.
Of course, Gloria.
Hello. I want to ask you, David, about your views on life after death, and also what do you think of illness and suffering?
What do I think of?
Illness and suffering.
And suffering as well.
Well, you know, we're in a very exciting time, because more and more open-minded scientific research around the world, and what spiritual people and mystics over a long period of time have been saying are starting to sync, because in the end spirituality and true science is the same thing. And, you know, this physical body, which we get so attached to and so obsessed with, is merely the vehicle through which our eternal consciousness can experience this world. I mean, I've got a pen in my hand here. My consciousness, my thinking, feeling level of emotional self is not resonating to the frequency range of this physical world. It just works and experiences this world through this physical body. If I don't take on an outer shell that is in the same frequency range as the world I want to interact with, I couldn't pick this pen up. It'd be impossible. So it's like taking on an outer suit that resonates with the frequency range we want to experience. So while the physical body clearly has a finite life and then goes back to the energy pool like everything does, you can't destroy energy, it just goes into another form. Our eternal consciousness, the thinking, feeling us, merely goes on to another realm of experience.
Do we continue to think and feel from that other realm of experience, do you think?
Absolutely, but obviously our perception will
and we're resonating on another level.
We're resonating on a different frequency. Everything.
And the ghosts actually, do you think ghosts are people's soul, if you like, their thinking, feeling self coming back onto this level?
Well, if you think of ghosts, when people see kind of etheric figures, a lot of people who claim to have seen these greys and reptilians and extraterrestrials, a lot of them see them not as a physical form, but as an etheric kind of entity, which indicates that what they're seeing them on is not this dense physical level, but another dimension. And so if you look at ghosts, they are an etheric kind of cloudy kind of figure mostly. And that's the same visually as having a radio that's not quite on the station. If you get it right on the station, it's sharp and you can hear it perfectly. If it's not quite on the station but is close to it, then the reproduction will be fuzzy and there'll be some interference. It won't be sharp. And in visual terms, that's what it is when we see a ghost. We're seeing it an entity on another dimension, and therefore it doesn't appear from our frequency range to be sharp and solid.
Can they sometimes tune into our frequency range, and therefore we would see them as sharp and solid beings?
When you talk to people around the world who've taken part in some of these what have become known as satanic rituals, where the ritual is designed to create an energy field. This is what the ritual's about. This is what the sounds are about, the colors are about, the chants are about. It's to resonate energy in that ritual to a frequency that allows these guys to come out of another frequency into this one. I mean, you look at whether it's ancient or modern, the same things keep getting repeated.
Just to get back to Gloria's point, though, illness then is what you mean when you say, what does he think of illness? What do you mean, actually, Gloria?
Well, I just wondered, when people sort of suffer and the illness, sometimes, you hear people say, well, perhaps it's sort of like you may be inflicting it upon yourself. You're putting yourself down, which encourages the illness to come into your body. I just wondered, there's so many views on it.
Yeah, well, let me talk about that. Over the last few years, it has become accepted, because the evidence was so overwhelming it couldn't be anything but, that stress causes illness. That stress causes physical dis-ease, which is the real pronunciation of disease, because that's what it is. So what they do is they treat the stress with some kind of flippin' drug, because it's like, you've got something wrong with you. Is it the scalpel or the drug? Which one should we give them? It's like, it's the medicinal equivalent of the New Age club, what we call our modern medical system. When you start to look at the person as a whole, as a multidimensional being with the physical body and then the mental level and the emotional level and other levels of being, you start to realize that what you're looking at is a series of energy fields that are interacting with each other. So if, for instance, we become very emotionally stressed, which this world is kind of designed to create us, then when we get emotionally stressed, that emotional level, that emotional energy field starts to resonate in a very imbalanced way. Total lack of ease, total lack of harmony. The first thing that happens when we get really stressed is we stop thinking straight. We stop thinking straight because the imbalance resonating in the emotional level because of the stress starts to affect the mental level, and we start to lose the ability to think straight. If that stress is powerful enough and goes on for long enough, it then starts to affect the physical level of being. And at that point, it creates a chemical change in the body which we call dis-ease. Now, it's only at that point that modern medicine comes in and treats the chemical reaction with another chemical.
So you're saying if we understood ourselves a little better, we'd never get ill?
Exactly. But, I mean, I don't think we're going to reach that point in the near future. But what we are reaching more and more is an understanding that we have to start looking at the cause of disease and not just treating the symptoms, otherwise the symptoms will keep coming back. And I'll just tell you very, very quickly about this. I was in Australia recently, and I met a number of these guys. And this fellow was a conventional doctor. And he was actually the head of a MASH unit in Vietnam. He was cutting people up to save their lives, cutting their limbs off in the bush, in the jungle. And he started to realize as the years passed that what modern medicine was and what he was asked to be was basically just either a pharmacist or a butcher. And he started to study what the human entity really was. And he started to realize that we are different levels. We are an emotional level and a mental level and physical level, and these interact with each other. And if you don't sort out the cause of the problem, then the physical problem will not go away. Now, I went to this guy's treatment center, and I talked to some of his patients, and people talk about miracles. There are no miracles. There's just the use of the natural forces of creation and physics and energy. And what this guy is doing from the perception of modern medicine is unbelievable miracles, but it's not miracles, it's just knowledge of the human entity. I met a woman who was so ill with lung cancer that she had to be driven to the surgery. She'd been written off by modern medicine, nothing we can do for you. Within 2 visits, this guy didn't even touch her body. He was just working on other energy levels of herself, not the physical. Because, you know, the physical body has a blueprint. Some people call it the etheric body. And when that is imbalanced, it will manifest as physical disease. You keep that balanced, then the physical body must be well. So he works on that level and the physical comes right. After 2 visits, she was driving herself. After a number of visits, she went back to the hospital and had the lungs tested again. There was no sign of cancer, and even the lung tissue had gone back to normal. Another guy walks in. This guy has been in unbelievable pain in his back for years. His back was so bad when he sat on the bench in the treatment room, he had to sit almost flat because he couldn't bend his back. 15 minutes later, the guy was touching his toes. Merely because this guy had got to the cause of the problem rather than the symptom. And what this guy had been told by doctors is the only way to sort his back out was a major operation, which could, if it wasn't totally successful, make him paralyzed. Now, this is the stuff, James, that is being suppressed, and there are people dying in their millions around the world every day and every week who no need to die if we looked at the being as a whole and not this...
Who's trying to... I mean, I've got to go on and do a little feature here. Who's repressing all this knowledge? I mean, because we're here tonight, we're letting it out. Everybody's finding out about it. Who's repressing it? Why would they repress it?
Well, I mean...
I'll tell you what, have a think about that. We're going to come back in a moment.
Knowledge is power. Yep. Those who have it have the power.
That with Darren and Neil and Tom and you too, if you want to join us. David Icke is our guest on the show tonight. His book is called The Biggest Secret, and it is published by... Who is it published by?
Bridge of Love Publications.
Okay, Bridge of Love. Is that your own publishing company?
Yeah. Well, I had to start publishing my own books because everyone was running for the horizon.
Oh, dear.
When you mention famous people who are involved in satanic ritual and the abuse of children, people tend to run for cover.
I'm not surprised, David. Thank you for the warm-up. Okay, back to... I'm ready. Right, back to the calls. David Icke is with us until midnight. If you want to call, it's Darren in Nottingham. You're on the air. Hi, Darren.
Hello, James. Can I speak to David, please?
Carry on.
Hello, Darren.
Hello, David. I found the books and the videos very, very fascinating.
Thanks.
And you sort of, after I finished watching it all, I felt like I was on a quest to find out a bit more knowledge, so I went onto your website. And I started scanning through a few of the sites connected to yours. And I come across this document that was written by a man called Graham Danton from Western Morning News.
Right.
And it's about a little-known bill that protects our rights. And I'm reading down through it, and I come to a few paragraphs where it says, ironically, the fact that MPs can say what they like in the Commons and be protected by privilege also comes from the bill, because the bill cannot be overturned. It seems very likely that a recent total ban on private target pistol ownership was illegal But to date, no one has challenged this in the courts.
Yeah. Darren, why are we interested in this?
Because I'm trying to give David Icke a bit of information on the Bill of Rights, because not many people know what it is.
Right to him. Neil in Macclesfield, you're on the air.
Hello, James. Hello, David.
Hello, Neil.
Hello, right. Just wanted to let you know, David, I've not read any of your books. I've not been to your website.
Right.
But I've been totally transfixed by what you've said tonight. To be honest with you, and I'll be brutally honest with you, David, 10 years ago when you went through the Son of God sort of period and you were wearing your green sort of shell suit, I thought you were a bit of a prat, but tonight my respect for you has gone up tenfold, especially when you were talking about being an individual and about believing in, not really caring what other people think, getting over the fear of what other people think of you, and getting out of the box was the analogy you used, wasn't it?
Neil, do you have a question, or are you just going to continue to be sycophantic?
No, I'm not going to be sycophantic. I do have a question. Basically, my question is, how many people in your experience have gone through this? I mean, how many people have come out of your the box and, basically begun to believe in who they are?
Well, there's definitely an awakening wave of people all over the planet, of every race and every background, and the common theme is people with an open mind, and people who desire to know and desire to break out of what they perceive to be the limitations of life imposed upon us. It's a personal choice. Some things are going on for sure, because certainly over the last 10 years, and it's expanding all the time, more and more people are starting to ask the big questions and start to break out of this fear of what other people think. And it's an important point to emphasize that when I'm talking about a few people controlling the world, the understandable reaction from most people is, it's not possible. Look, mate, there's friggin' 6 billion. I don't want to count some, James, but there's supposed to be 6 billion. It's not possible. The terrifying thing is that not only is it possible, it's a piece of flipping cake. Once people create a situation in which they're not only sheep, they're also a sheepdog. If you look at a herd of sheep, it's controlled by two states of being. There's the bar mentality, where the sheep just follow the one in front. That accounts for most of the buggers. And then you've got the few sheep that don't immediately conform to that, and then they bring the sheepdog in, fear.
Yeah.
And that sorts them out, and in a few minutes it's all sorted.
I mean, to be honest with you, David, we live in a people-orientated society, and there are people out there, whether intentionally or not, try to put down your beliefs and your values. As recently as a year ago, I became very depressed because people really didn't accept me for who I was, and I just felt I didn't fit into society, and I became very depressed, even almost suicidal because of it. And then one day I woke up and I thought to myself, what the hell am I doing? And like a great weight lifted off my shoulders.
Well, I think it's absolutely vital that we break out of this living our lives on the basis of other people's version of what we should be. Because until we do that, we're part of the flipping herd, and the herd can be centrally controlled. And what's happened, just to finish the point, is that we laugh at herds of sheep. We say, they're bloody stupid then. Look, they're following the one in front, look and running from that dog. If we take that situation and we express it in the human example, the human herd has actually out-sheep the sheep, because we've dispensed with the sheepdog. We police each other, and that's the problem. The only way, just to finish the point quick, Neil, the only way that a few can control and manipulate the vast majority is if they get the vast majority to police each other. If you set a norm in society and then get the people to police that norm by giving people a hard time for being different in some way, form or whatever, then you've not only created a fascist state, you've created the very means by which a few can control the mass. If we break from the herd and find peace with other people being different from us and having a different view, then we break that structure that allows us to be centrally controlled.
Neil, thank you for your call. Tom is in Essex. You're on the air, through to David Icke.
Oh, hi, James. Hi, David.
Hello, Tom.
Privilege to speak to you, mate.
Oh, God, no. Not a privilege. God.
It is, honestly. I've read your book, The Biggest Secret. I've read it a couple of times. I found it fascinating. You're 100%, spot on. And, it's got a really good reception amongst all marketers. I'm a clinical hypnotherapist.
Yeah.
And, you know, when you talk about the unconscious mind and everything,
yeah.
Well, one of my friends, he's a lecturer at a university, and he said to me, David Icke is a genius. So, you know, there's that. I want to ask James if I can read a little bit from a psychology book which actually corroborates what you say.
No. Russell, you know, but we'd be here all night and I'd be flipping around the bend doing it.
I've got photocopies of that.
I beg your pardon, Russell?
I was given photocopies of what he was probably going to read out.
Were you?
Yes.
Well, did he put it on the web? Put it on our website, and then everybody can go and read it. Right, go on.
Yeah.
Good. Right, David, I've got a question.
Hello, mate. Yeah.
Magnetic resonance imaging. Do you have any views on that?
Well, tell me what you're talking about. I'll probably use different language for it.
Well, MRI scans that are used in hospitals.
Go on.
And it lines up your hydrocarbons with the big magnet in the scanner.
All right, gotcha.
Right. Do you know anything about it?
Well, not really, but I mean, you know, the whole thing... The whole
frequencies that apparently... No, it can slice through.
Russell, get to the point, Russell, please.
Well, the point is, I have had probably the same experiences as you have.
Right.
And I've spent a long number of years with the medical profession. And finally, I seem to be getting somewhere, but, it involves having MRI scans.
I've had those, Russell. What is the problem?
Well, I've had 3 of them.
Yeah.
And... repeatedly they keep on saying there's nothing wrong, there's nothing wrong.
Then there's probably nothing wrong. I'm sorry, but go on.
Yeah, the thing about magnets is interesting, actually, though, and it's just bringing magnetism into it. This energy, this auric field, consciousness in all its various forms, is basically a magnetic energy. And it's interesting that people that work in with electromagnetic technology very close to it, tend to get like cancers and stuff that the general population don't get in much greater numbers, because when we're very close to electronic magnetic technology, it can affect us and disrupt our energy field, which then manifests as physical disease.
The thing about these MRI scans, which I have quite a lot of knowledge of because I've had quite a few lately, is that they look right through your body and they can find if there's anything in your body that shouldn't be there. Having too many of them is not a good idea, but if a doctor says, I've looked at your scans and you're okay, the chances are he's okay. Showcut in Birmingham, you're on the air. Hi.
Hi, James, how are you?
Yeah, good.
David, I read all your books, young man.
Oh, yeah, thanks for the young man.
Years ago, and I was fascinated by them, especially the things that what's happened has already happened before, and, reincarnation and the karma, and when we die, the people are going to celebrate the death because we go to different dimensions, different frequencies, I read all that. It's fascinating stuff. But where do you get your information? Is it from the automatic writing and the psychic that you mentioned in your book, Betty? Is that
No, the thing is that, I've been on a journey over the last 10 years, which has taken me into many areas. It's taken me in the early 90s into the psychic areas and then into and all that stuff, and it's many other areas of experience. And I think one of the problems with people is that we fear experience. We're frightened of having new experience. We're frightened of change. We're frightened of failure in many ways. And what I've done in the last 10 years is just, stuck my foot into everything and seen, what there was to get out of it. And at the end of that journey, I've moved through all that, and my work now, in like The Biggest Secret and The Truth Shall Set You Free, is very much hard research. And even on the energy levels that I'm talking about, the fact that we're multidimensional beings and the physical body's only one level of us, more and more open-minded science around the world is coming to exactly that conclusion as they go into metaphysics. So it's a vast range of research from many different sources that's led to the way I'm perceiving the world at the moment. But I think it was Tom said, I think you're 100%, mate. Well, I thank Tom for that, but if I'm 100%, then I'm about the first person in the bloody world ever has been. I'm seeking, and I have as many questions, probably more, than anyone listening to this program. And
so you don't think you're 100% yet?
Oh, absolutely not. But is the theme correct? I'm absolutely sure of that from the basis of the evidence.
Okay.
But is every detail correct? Oh, of course not.
Let's take one more call. It's going to be Chris in London. Thank you, Shaka. Right, hi. Hello, Chris. No, Chris is gone. Okay, it doesn't matter, because it gives me time to have a little word with you about your tour, which is starting off on the 24th of September. I don't know, because I've got all the listings.
Oh, great, yeah.
I thought you'd be pleased. Yeah.
I'm doing the Isle of Wight in London, and Bristol.
Not many people do the Isle of Wight.
No, they don't. I live there. I just nip down the bloody street and start talking.
Jimi Hendrix did.
What?
Isle of Wight.
Yeah, Jimi Hendrix did do the Isle of Wight. You're absolutely right, but we weren't really talking about that.
Bob Dylan too.
And Bob Dylan. Bob Dylan's coming back to this country in the not too distant future.
Yeah.
And we'll try and get him on the show. Yeah. You're in London on Sunday the 1st of October, then in Bristol on Tuesday the 3rd, in Leeds at the City Varieties on Thursday the 5th of October, in Birmingham you'll be at the Stourbridge Town Hall on Sunday the 8th, and then in Dublin on Sunday the 15th. And presumably there'll be sort of questions and answers as well as talking about your theories?
Yeah, well, you see, the thing is that the information's now got to... There's 2 evening ones there, Leeds and Bristol, but the rest of the days, they start about 10 in the morning and go on till about 6 at night.
But seriously, I just glanced at that and I was thinking to myself, starts at 10 o'clock. No, but...
They're all days, because... and they're illustrated all the way through. It's not just me standing there waffling, but the thing is that there's so much to research, and there's so many pieces in the puzzle to explain, and then how the puzzle fits together, that it just takes that long to fit the puzzle pieces together to the extent that I have at the moment. There's a long way to go yet.
David, thank you for coming in and talking to us. It's been interesting to find out what the real David Icke is like. You're not going to actually pull any punches anymore. You're not going to go back to a sort of normal, if there is such a thing as a normal life. You're going to carry on this path, are you?
If I thought that I was going to live a normal life from now, I would take the bloody pill, mate.
What is the... don't do that, David, please. What is... there'll be no more fun in the future. What is your website, just before we go?
Yeah, it's www.davidicke.com, Icke being I-C-K-E. It's got more than 3,000 web pages of information, many archives on the various subjects, and we started it in July 99 and got 600,000 hits in the first year, which is staggering. But that's the interest in the stuff, mate.
It's going to be a wet weekend all over the country, so there's a way to spend it on davidicke.com's website. Over 6,000, did you say 6,000 or 3,000 pages?
Over 3, well, it must be about nearly 3,500, 4,000 by now.
David, thanks very much indeed. This is TalkSport, the James Whale Show. We'll be linking with America after the news. Don't go away.